this is a great transition into our Redzone Rodeo Rowdy rankings, where we'll be covering our new power rankings after week 1. And, as I've been mentioning, who do we have at number 1, Rob? We have the Stallions. And there's a reason why they're at number 1 on our list, because they have exceeded expectations in terms of what people thought they were going to do in the game. And honestly, it may hurt you, Rob, but it wasn't really a close game. It wasn't like down to the wire, both teams battling.
No, it was not.
It was not close. It was not. The Stallions hands down won that game. It wasn't the luck of a field goal from 64 yards. They obviously had their own issues to work out, but overall, they were able to get the job done, and they made the right, adjustments to make it work. And at the end of the day, that's what these top football teams do. They make the adjustments needed to ultimately achieve victory at the end of the day. And I think the Stallions are number 1 on our list because of that. And I think they're going to stay number 1 on the list until we have another team prove otherwise. So for our UFL power rankings, week 1, we have the Stallions at number 1.
Yeah. And, the Stallions, I think they have something that no other team in the UFL has. They have managed to keep the same roster, the same coaches together for 3 years. They have 3 years of chemistry, 3 years of, being together, 2 years worth of championship culture, looking like a third. They just have something special there that no other UFL team can really match. As much as it pains me to say that, I think they definitely have their problems, especially throwing the football right now, because they're still trying to figure out the quarterback situation. But they just have such a great system in terms of running the ball and playing defense and all this sort of stuff. It's just hard not to view them as the number 1 team in the league right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 2 on the power rankings, we told you they were going to be high, even though they were dead last week. We have the San Antonio Brahmas. The way they were able to just utterly dominate a team that we had very high in the power rankings and the DC Defenders, the way their defense looked, the way their quarterback play looked, all these areas of concern we had for them, they answered every single question, and they answered it resoundingly. You can't win in such a dominant fashion and not shoot up the power rankings really fast, especially against a team we saw as very legitimate and very tough competition in the DC Defenders. Until they start looking like the Brahmas of old, the Brahmas of last year, they're just going to stay probably at that number 2 spot or even move higher depending on what happens with the Stallions. So very impressive for them.
Yeah. At number 3, we have the Memphis Showboats. I thought they played a very stellar game against the Roughnecks, going up against a tough defense, which is what Case Cookus did. Yes, there were issues, but overall, I think this Showboats team did a really good job of exploiting some of those weak points, even in the Roughnecks defense, which is pretty lockdown tough. And they were able to make things work in order to win the game. And it wasn't just their offense. It wasn't Case Cookus, throwing the football to Vinny Papali or others like that. It was also the defense. The defense came out, made big plays and takeaway plays. The Roughnecks at least fumbled once. No, not once. I'm sorry, twice. They fumbled twice. And both times that was, huge game-changing moments in terms of, taking over the momentum of the game. And the Showboats did that right in the heart of the Roughnecks land, right in Rice Stadium in Houston. So I 100% expect them to be a very well team. Of course, again, we keep saying this over and over. It's week 1. Anything can change. But they have definitely shot up a number of spots from our previous power rankings because of what they were able to do against, I would say, probably one of the better defenses in the league. They were still able to pull through and make some big plays.
Absolutely. They were really special in that game. At number 4, we have one that's a little controversial. Definitely one of our bigger followers this week, but they are rated above the team that just beat them this past weekend. At number 4, we have the St. Louis Battlehawks. The reason we have them at number 4 is because, one, all of the potential their team has with injured players coming back, like Ja'Cour Pearson, who was the best wide receiver in the entire XFL last year. Number two, like we said, their offense really seemed to click at the end of the game there. And if they play like that, I think they'll be beating a lot of teams this year, and they'll probably, like we said earlier, climb back up this board. Number three, they needed a 64-yard field goal to lose at the end of the game. So that's not something that you would make every weekend. It's not something you'd expect to happen every weekend. It's one of those scenarios where if these two teams played 10 times, you'd expect them to win probably 7 or 8 of those games. And the one or two that they did lose would be on a crazy freak thing like this, like a 64-yard field goal. So while the Battlehawks did lose this weekend, it was by, this much, a 64
Mhm.
yard field goal. They still have a super talented roster that's only going to get better as time goes on. And that's why we have them at number 4 right now.
Yeah. And at number 5, we have their opponent, the Panthers. And as miraculous as that 64-yard field goal was, there is some issues in regards to the Panthers offense. EJ Perry was hyped up to be this great caliber quarterback. He did not play it well at all. His throwing was off. I believe he rushed for 2 touchdowns, which shows, that agility there. Um, but all in all, it wasn't a stellar showing from the Panthers offense in terms of the quarterback play. The running game was decent and their defense was decent. But, as you mentioned, Rob, do I see the Panthers beating any of the teams above them? Obviously, they did beat the Battlehawks in a kind of freak scenario, but I don't see them beating the Battlehawks again if they replayed each other. And I don't see them beating the Showboats or the Brahmas or the Stallions. And so, obviously we'll end up seeing because, Stallions end up playing the Panthers this upcoming week. So we'll see how the Panthers end up doing. We may have them moving up a little bit more. But I do think, as we had mentioned, to win a game on a 64-yard field goal where your offense wasn't able to do much of anything to get you even in closer field goal range with mistakes, overthrown balls, underthrown balls, it needs some work. And so the Panthers are at 5 in our power rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you consider that their defense gave up like a game losing score essentially, and then their offense was only able to get close enough for a 64-yard field goal at the end. That would lose you most football games where you don't have an insanely, amazing kicker coming out to save you at the end. At number 6, we have my team, the Arlington Renegades. We had them very high in our last power ranking, but they kind of just disappointed all around. They fell flat. They have holes all over the defense. Their offensive line is not very good. Their offensive coordinator is not very good. They're strong at quarterback. They're strong at wide receiver. They can throw the ball well, and as long as they can do that, I feel like they could always be, a team that could contend at some point. But right now, they're just not good enough. They're going to have to fix a lot of issues between now and next week if they want a chance at winning. Um, the season, as it goes on, we'll have to see if they manage to fix any of these holes they have. But if they play like they did this past weekend, I don't expect them to win a lot of games this season. I wouldn't be surprised if they miss the playoffs entirely. So as of right now, they are the number 6 team in the UFL.
At number 7, we have the DC Defenders. Honestly, their week 1 performance was mediocre to awful. Defense and offensive side of the ball. Their defense allowed Chase Garbers and the running game of the Brahmas to pretty much destroy them. Something that we definitely didn't see last year when it comes to the DC Defenders that went 9-1 and who had a stellar defense. Of course, I know some of those players are not the same, but still that core is still there. Something that was super shocking. And Jordan Tamu, their quarterback, did not play well. You know, he certainly made the throws that needed to happen, but they could never do anything on offense except kick field goals. And as an offense, your goal is to score touchdowns, not kick field goals. And, there certainly were plays where Jordan Tamu made them. And unfortunately, though, for the DC Defenders, he didn't play well enough to lead that team to victory. And not even to lead to victory, to keep up with the Brahmas. They were playing from behind almost all game. And it wasn't just 1 or 2, it was 2 scores behind most of the time. So when you're down like that, it's very difficult, especially when, you end up making mistakes like turning the ball over when you're in the red zone, almost scoring. That honestly, I think, was the whole momentum shift for the defenders when Jordan Thomas threw that interception that the Brahmas literally almost ran back for another touchdown, I believe, nearing the end of the first half. That pretty much sealed it for me when it came to watching that game. So they have a lot of work to do. I expect them to be better next week. But for now, after their week one performance, not great, a lot of mistakes. They're going to be our number 7.
At number 8, Carson, we have your team, the Houston Roughnecks. They had a lot of issues in their game, a lot of sloppiness, a lot of mistakes. Their offensive line wasn't very good. Their secondary had some issues at times. The running game was basically non-existent. So as of right now, they're at number 8. Although I will say, I think this is a team that we will see rise up because a lot of their deficiencies are because of injury. I think their pass defense will be much better once they get Reuben Foster and Chris Odom back. I think their run game will be much better once they get their guy Mark Thompson back there. So I don't think this is a team that will be staying at 8 for very long, but at least with the way their roster is right now, taking the injuries into account and the sloppiness of play, I think the Houston Roughnecks are at the number 8 spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they can certainly go up, but they need to fix some of the issues they had. Otherwise, they're going to be it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, but I mean, you got all the pieces you need. You got an elite pass rush at some point coming back. You have
Yep.
a great quarterback. You have great run defense. I
Yeah,
think
we have the
the
pieces.
pieces are all there.
Got to put it together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
All righty, guys. Well, that is our UFL power rankings following week one. Be sure to come and see the channel next week when we do our week 2 power rankings. Going to have a lot to talk about. We'll see how many of these teams shift around. We had a lot of movement from our pre-week 1 rankings, which was kind of cool to see. Our biggest jump was the Brahmas, up 6 spots from our number 8 spot. Just crazy to see like how some teams can absolutely flip the script. So we'll see how they get affected by this upcoming weekend. Thank you for joining us on the Redzone Rodeo podcast.
If you like football and you like having fun, come on down and subscribe and check out our channel for more videos like this one.
No ifs, ands, or buts. This is the best place for your football news.